You're watching Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. And now, here's two guys who have already broken every one of their New Year's resolutions, except the one to fire me, Evan and Joe.
I'm Joe Ticotsky down in New Haven, Connecticut.
And I'm Evan McFarlane here in St. Andrews, New Brunswick.
And you're watching episode 65 of Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV, our first episode of the calendar year 2024.
There we go.
But in mid-December, I made a trip up to St. Andrews, as evidenced by the hat.
Yes.
And I got to see Evan, got to give him a little New Haven bagel drop off there.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
And I saw a nice concert in Fredericton with Tim Baker, who was awesome. I got to visit with some friends, and but unfortunately, the last day the power went out.
Sure
so
did.
I wasn't able to see Evan's game, but I got to give the first of two shout outs. First one to David and Sandra Welch, because they saved me. They had a generator in their house, so rather than staying in a ice cold Kennedy house, I went there for the night and had a nice meal and a nice sleep. So they saved me. Almost ran out of gas on the way home because no one had it. But the other shout out is to my good friend Fred Williams, the girls coach at Northwestern Regional High School. In December, he set the all-time Connecticut state record for wins in girls basketball with his 705th win, which is quite impressive.
Congrats. That's huge.
Yep. And then coming up, or one started, one coming up, two of my favorite comedies are ironically both starting their 12th and final season on the air. Letterkenny, a Canadian show currently showing on Hulu, and good old Curb Your Enthusiasm on HBO. And as Larry would say, both of them are pretty good. You a Letterkenny fan?
Oh yeah, I love that show.
If you've never seen it, you can't even describe it.
No, it's like Central Canadian Trailer Park Boys.
Well, time for a short break, but when we come back, if you have never heard of ice tennis, we'll fill you in on the specifics as we chat with someone who's helping to build this new sport. You're watching Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV in St. Andrews. Welcome back to Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. In our quest to cover as many different sports as possible, we bring you the sport of ice tennis. And it's exactly what the name implies, tennis on ice. You can find a great clip on YouTube of ice tennis being played in the 1930s in the United States. But since then, no one's really tried to expand the sport until our first guest came along and tried to change that. He's got plans to have an international league and to one day make it an Olympic sport. From Edmonton, Alberta, let's meet the head of the new Ice Tennis League, Tristan Knight. Tristan, welcome to the show.
Hi there. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Now, what gave you the idea to start an Ice Tennis League?
Well, I was getting ready for my Switzerland trip to go see Roger Federer play, just regular tennis. And I was going through one of the tour books. And one thing that popped up that caught my eye was a picture of ice polo, which was basically horses on studs playing on a frozen lake and literally hitting the ball. And I was like, wow, instantly thought of like, when I get back, I got to try tennis on ice. So I thought that was just, I don't know, it was just like a mirror in the bookstore reading that. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. So that's kind of how I got the seed planted in my head, and yeah. So,
nice. How did Federer do in that tournament?
Very good. Yeah. He did very good. It was very excellent to watch.
Nice.
Evan.
Awesome.
Evan. Yeah, so people can obviously play individually against each other, but maybe tell us about the different teams that are being formed all over the world right now.
Yeah, well, I'm working on that right now. So I have a team set up from India. We're going to name them the Indian Lions. And then from Canada's perspective, it would be the Canadian Knights. So, and I have more connections with Slovakia and the Netherlands. It's building and building. So it's all about bringing nations together and more people together. So yeah, to show them a really good sport, something entertaining, and also something really positive to show them.
It's cool that it's ice too, and then you go Canada, which is like, yeah, of course. Then you're like, India is actually the first team we've got coming on.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Awesome.
good to open the door to everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're starting it out like right in your area of Edmonton also?
Yeah, just a little fun thing, kind of promote it a little bit and show people this what it's all about, so they can play on other skates or studs.
Okay.
Cool.
Now, you mentioned to me before, you have a pretty cool idea involving LED lights on the courts, sort of as the boundaries. Tell our viewers a little about that.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, eventually I would like to get some lights, some LED lights that are waterproof underneath the ice rink to kind of give out a nice effect of where the line courts are. And it'll shine right through the ice, so give it a cool effect. We'll have these outfits on with these masks on, kind of really put a good spark into the game and really, put people out of their shoes and show them something really cool that they haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Nice. And Tristan, when you're making that, and if you need a prototype, we can line the hallway from Joe's bedroom to his bathroom so we can get there safely at night.
That's it. Nice.
That is probably my riskiest trip of the night is the bathroom run.
Trip of the night. You mean 5 trips of the night?
Yeah. You got some questions about the rules.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say, what are some of the rules or scoring differences between regular tennis and ice tennis, and how about some of the equipment differences?
Yeah, so it's similar. It's got its own things. So for example, when it's 40-40, it'll be next point wins rather than regular tennis where it goes advantage, and deuce, and it gets a little tedious. So this will speed up the game. Ice tennis is all about speed, so you'd have a great advantage if you're on skates rather than ice studs, but you'll still be able to play on ice studs. So you have that flexibility. You also have the flexibility being on with knee pads and elbow pads and stuff like that, where you can slide on ice, whereas regular tennis, you can't really do that as much. So it's nice to have that nice advantage when someone hits the ball just over the net and you're at the baseline. So you can slide into it, get right back into position and hit the next ball. So it's really good.
So now the scoring, would it be 15, 30, 40 game?
Oh, I'm going to do 10, 20, 30, 40, and then game. To kind of keep it easier for someone who's learning for the first time, because it's a little bit harder to confuse people from 15 to 30 to 40, and then, so I just thought I'd keep a 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing. Right. And then, yeah.
All right. And then you had mentioned about with the equipment of skates versus ice studs, so you can put those right on regular footwear.
Yeah, there's ice tracks company out there, and they're really good. They have like 9 studs, 5 in the front, 4 in the back, and really good control on the ice. So you can play with either one.
All right. Now, how would you say in terms of like I'm a decent tennis player, but have very minimal skating skills. So how big of a disadvantage would that put me at?
Well, that's why it opens the door for the ice studs. But I mean, if you really wanted to try skating, it would be probably a little challenging. But like if you just wanted to give the ice tracks a shot, it's really good. You just take probably like a minute or 2 to get used to it, get a little bit of sliding, just a little bit of a practice run, just like you would when you're skiing, for example, or snowboarding for the first time. You kind of go down the slopes. Just getting a little bit of used to, and then once you really trust the studs, it's really good. Like you'll see how much control you have on the ice with it.
Show me those masks that you had there. This is wild.
Yeah, so I have this one here.
Whoa,
it's different effect.
Kind of looks like the Jabberwockies.
And totally customizable. So you could take a picture or whatever on there, and then you could put it on there. So for the Canadian Knights, it'll be nice to kind of have a nice Knight emblem.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah. Very cool. Now, before we let you go, in terms of obviously something like this needs some seed money, what type of sponsors or backers are you either that you have or that you're hoping to get involved?
Yeah, well, I have already quite a few sponsors, and I just like to open up the door to maybe challenging someone out there if possible. So maybe Mr. Beast there, Jimmy Donaldson, would help kind of promote the sport a little bit. He's already got my invitation in November, so hopefully I can challenge him there, and he's not afraid to lose. So we'll see how that goes, and then help each other out and see how we play against each other on the ice.
Evan's independently wealthy, so you could He'll fork over some
Yeah,
people.
I'm extremely flush.
Uh, well, it sounds like it's pretty amazing to sort of start a sport out from nothing, to go to this, and you've got some very ambitious ideas, and it sounds awesome. For our viewers, if you want some more info about this unique sport called ice tennis, you can go to icetennisleague.ca, and they're adding things every day to the website, and it's something that is just a pretty neat kind of sport to jump on board early on. He's Tristan Knight, head of the Ice Tennis League, or ITL. Tristan, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cheers.
See ya.
After the break, Small Town Spotlight keeps our focus right on Alberta, where a former Halifax resident is bringing his love of East Coast Canadian food to Canada's far west. You're watching Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Welcome back to Small Town Spotlight and Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. For this episode, we head west to the province of Alberta, where our guest moved after spending the early part of his life in Nova Scotia. How does one go from selling cotton candy and popcorn on the Halifax waterfront at the age of 17 to a job in the oil and gas industry to running 7 restaurants throughout Alberta? We're about to find out as we welcome in Josh Robinson, CBO and co-founder of Blowers and Grafton Restaurants. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Great. All right, so you start out running a cotton candy and popcorn stand on the waterfront in Halifax, then open up a donair and pizza shop in the same area, then head to Alberta to work in the oil and gas industry. Please fill in the gaps of that job transition and lifestyle change.
Yeah, I guess just before that first one down in the waterfront, the cotton candy stand, I was working at Superstore, getting paid about $5.70 an hour when I learned that cotton candy only cost about 8 cents a bag. So I quickly thought, well, if I sell 10 bags of cotton candy, I don't have to work 6 hours, kind of thing. So that's what kind of drove me to the waterfront when I started thinking, where could I sell anything but cotton candy, especially. So yeah, I ran that for a few years before, realizing there was a lack of food down there in general. Donairs, garlic fingers, pizza, healthy options like wraps and salads. So convinced the Waterfront Development Corporation to build me a kiosk, opened that up, ran that for a few years. And so I was about 22, 23 by that point after running that for 3 years. And I just kind of wanted to get a change of pace, change of scenery, see a bigger city, right? See what's out there. I had a bunch of friends out here in Calgary, and I saw a path to come out here and change it up, maybe not run my own thing all the time. And yeah, worked oil and gas for a few years, and that's where I met one of my business partners and his brother. And I mean, the seed was planted early on here in Calgary when I didn't see many East Coast foods around. Tried ordering a pizza the first weekend I was out here, and I ordered a large pepperoni pizza, medium garlic fingers, and the guy didn't know what garlic fingers were and couldn't pull it off for me. So the seed was planted pretty early for Blowers and Grafton, that is.
All right. Now, before we go any further, let our American and non-East Coast Canadian viewers know what a donair is. But first, I will tell you my embarrassing story. The first time I was out in that area and I see these signs for donair, and in my mind, I'm ready to go look for one. And I thought it was a combination of a donut and an eclair. And I was wrong when I looked at what it was. But tell our viewers what a donair is.
Well, that sounds like a great idea too. So now you got me thinking. But yeah, donair is quite a unique Canadian phenomenon. It was, born originally in Halifax, specifically actually my hometown of Bedford, which is part of Halifax. The story goes actually how it was originally created. It was a Greek gentleman, Peter Gamalakis, had a pizza place, named Velo's Pizza, actually, right in the Bedford Highway, and he was selling lamb, like gyro type sandwiches with a yogurt based sauce. Obviously, that's tzatziki basically. And for some reason, people just weren't buying it that much. I think they're more meat and potato people there at the time. And yeah, so we kind of went back to the drawing board and really switched things up. He went from like a thicker pita, like a naan bread almost style, to a Lebanese pita. He switched up the lamb to a beef, and heavily seasoned, spicy kind of beef. Obviously on that cone, on the rotisserie. And then instead of all the lettuce and the turnips and the pickled this and that, he just went chopped tomatoes and onions. And then the most unique feature of a real Halifax donair is donair sauce, and that's the only word we refer to it as, not sweet sauce, not some other sauce. There's only one sauce that goes on donairs in Halifax, and that is a very strange sauce. It's milk based, with sugar and vinegar and garlic. So strange, but goes incredibly well with that spicy beef. And that's the way that you call up any pizza place in Nova Scotia. That's exactly how they're going to make it for you, and that's how we do it out here in Alberta, which is kind of strangely not all that common. It's changed as it went across the country, which is great and fine. But for those that are looking for the true donair, that's what we've kind of got out here. We even ship the meat from Nova Scotia.
Okay, now you don't just talk the talk about East Coast foods. What other foods from back Nova Scotia do you bring to your menus?
Yeah, we've got a whole bunch, right? And the cool thing is, it's not even just, the way you prepare certain things, which part of it is, right? Certain techniques and traditional recipes, but a lot of it is unique ingredients that, when you visit the Maritimes or you're from the Maritimes, you're used to having, and then when you leave, you really miss them, and you maybe didn't even realize how unique they were. Like I say, our donair meat we actually bring in because it's got the right spice and the right fat content. But we also bring in a smoked pepperoni product, a Brothers style pepperoni. That is the only pepperoni we use in our pizzas. It's also fried pepperoni. We serve that with honey mustard, which is basically every pub in Halifax does the same thing, but you just don't find it out here. We bring in the blueberries. We bring in a secret family recipe pizza sauce from Pictou County. It's called Pictou County pizza sauce. It's a very, very unique brown sauce, they call it. It makes an incredible pizza.
There's some
what
fish.
else? Oh yeah, all of our seafood comes from the Atlantic as well. So that's all coming out from back east: haddock, mussels, our fried clams, our whole clams that we ship out, lobster, obviously. So many different ingredients. And then we also bring out a bunch of craft beers, right? From locally in Halifax and some in PEI, some distilleries from Newfoundland and from Nova Scotia, some beers from New Brunswick as well. We've got really great relationships with all these groups and stuff. We've got a cool cocktail menu that we use distilled spirits from Nova Scotia and kind of spin them with the flavors from back east as well. So yeah, there's a lot of unique items. When we're training our servers and our front out staff, it's kind of interesting because a lot of them are used to working in another restaurant or pub, and generally the menu's pretty straightforward. It doesn't take too long to figure it out. Pizzas, flatbread, beef dip sandwich, and all this. But we've got so many unique ingredients and items that you kind of got to know a little bit about them to really truly have that knowledge for the guests, sort of thing.
Okay. Now, how many locations do you currently have, and what are the plans for expansion?
Yeah, so right now we've got 7 that are open. We closed the first original one down. It was a 35-seat little restaurant to us at the time. It was a big restaurant though, so it's kind of cool. And we closed that after its lease. Basically, we couldn't pull off the full menu there, so that would have made it 8. But we've got 3 open right now in Calgary. We've got 3 open in Edmonton. And we've got 1 in Lethbridge. And then we've got a few leases that we'll be filling this year around Alberta, kind of outside of those cities. Red Deer, Medicine Hat, and even Lloydminster, you may see us soon.
And how about outside the province?
Yeah, it's absolutely something that we have our eyes on for sure. There's still so much room here in Alberta for sure, which, you know, obviously it's more sustainable to make our next steps right here where we can to grow the team and grow our abilities. But it's absolutely something we're already looking into, and having discussions in different provinces and stuff like that as well. So you know, we've learned so much over the last 7 years that we really want to share these foods that are from the Maritimes with the rest of Canada, basically.
How about like a little kiosk back in Halifax?
Yeah, I love that idea. I absolutely love that idea. I'd love to have a little anything there in Halifax. So that's definitely something that I've thought about since day one. Is can I take this all the way back to Halifax? That's a really cool way you put that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we let you go, a few months ago, I was reading a crazy story in the New York Times about the government of Alberta auctioning off an adult-sized Donair costume, which was once used for a public service ad warning against the dangers of driving under the influence of cannabis. Now, the bidding, according to the article, started at $50 and went over $12,000, and you were one of those bidders. Tell us quickly that story.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a very confusing start to it. One of my GMs in Edmonton sent me an email saying that she thought it was the federal government at first. So the federal government is selling this Donair costume. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Looked up an article. There was one article that was up at that point, and I was like, okay, I think I kind of understand what's going on. But me and my partners were just losing it laughing. We thought it was the funniest thing ever that the Alberta government had a Donair costume and it was under auction. and we literally like quickly knew that this had the ability to blow up in terms of like something that people are going to also find hilarious and get behind. And, you know, the Donair is such a Canadian thing that people are very passionate about. It can almost be polarizing a little bit too, the way they prepare them out here and you know how they're prepared originally back home. So yeah, so I mean, immediately we're like, we got to get in on this. You know, let's win this thing. So yeah, I think we jumped in before it was at $1,000, and I think that evening, which is wild, but like I think we almost took it to like almost $10,000, maybe in the first evening, maybe it was $8,000. And yeah, you know, it for about 2 weeks there, I'm pretty sure it was one of the biggest news articles in Canada. You know, my phone was blowing up for a good 2 or 3 weeks there. I actually went back home to Halifax a couple days after the whole thing started. So I did a lot of Zoom calls with, you know, CBC and CTV and Global and stuff from my dad's basement. But yeah, it was very, very exciting for the Donair to take such a not only a national stage but an international stage. When the New York Times reached out to us, that was pretty incredible. You know, me and my partner talking with the reporter from the New York Times and explaining the Donair, which is really cool because I know it isn't something that you know the United States has. It's a very uniquely Canadian thing, even though a lot of people in Canada don't really truly understand that, I don't think, because they just assume it's everywhere. It's in Turkey, it's in Greece, it's in Lebanon, it's in the US, but it's not. And the fact that it's not in the US kind of proves that it's not overseas either. There's versions of things, right? There's the Doner, there's the gyro, there's the shawarma, but the Donair, Donair, prepared in this way with that sweet Donair sauce, just the simple spicy beef with the Lebanese pita, onions, tomatoes. That is what a Donair is, and that's very unique to Canada. So it's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, he is Josh Robinson, CBO and co-founder of Blowers in Grafton, which currently has 7 restaurants in Edmonton, Calgary, and Lethbridge, with more on the way. And you can find out all about his restaurants by going to blowersgrafton.com. And Josh, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it.
We're back. Welcome back to the show. Who ended up winning the bid on the Donair costume?
Oh, yeah. It was an Edmonton chain called Primetime Donair in Poutine that paid a grand total of $16,025. Crazy story. And the costume was made by an LA-based production company that did animatrix for the movie Chucky.
Oh,
Good. I'd love
right
to.
on.
I'd love to see you in the Donaire costume walking around St. Andrews.
I love Donaires. I could rock that for sure. Be the tallest Donaire you've ever seen. Yeah. There's also two T-shirts of interest during this interview, yours and Josh's. Why don't you explain a bit about those?
All right, mine was from Peace Restaurant, a New Haven thin crust pizza place out in Chicago that's owned by a friend of mine, Bill Jacobs. And Chicago's normally the home of that crap known as deep dish pizza, but he's bringing the thin crust there. And Josh's T-shirt was also from a friend of his, Dave's famous chicken wing sauce from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Okay.
So check out Peace and Dave's online. And I did forget during the interview to mention, someone asked how the restaurant Blowers in Grafton got its name. And it's actually from a street corner in Halifax, Blowers in Grafton Street. Now I have two quick questions for you. Do you know, you know what someone from Halifax is called? Like what it's serious, it's not a joke, what they refer to themselves as?
A Halatonian?
You're very close, very close.
Oh.
Haligonian.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't quite know how that comes from Halifax, but
yeah.
And my other question, about how many Donaires did you consume while in college?
Ooh. You know what? I was a late bloomer to Donaires. I didn't really like them. And then my love for them came, I'd say, post-university. But talking about thin crust pizza, there was a pizza chain around the corner from my place that had all-you-could-eat slices one night a week, and I ate my body weight every Tuesday, probably. You got to do what you got to do when you got no money.
Without a doubt. Well, that is it for episode 65 of Mc&T Sports Report. I'm Joe in New Haven.
I'm Evan here in New Brunswick.
Thanks to Patrick Watt and Florence Mitchell for being able to produce and edit a show that is now 100% sugar-free, salt-free, and very low in carbs.
But huge with Donaires.
This is Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO in St. Andrews.